So, good morning, good morning, good morning. It feels like it's been ages since we did this. I think it might have been ages. But before we begin to do anything else, first of all, let me say good morning to Greg, who, as always, is standing to my right side. And let's say good morning to Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Rosemary. I'm glad to see you're back from New York.
Yeah, me too. I'm sort of out of the cold and into the warm. Yippee! All right. So today is story time. As you know, I think it's, what is it, March 4th or something. How did we get to March is what I want to know. How on earth did we manage to get into March? So before we start with our story, which is an old story, it's going to be a very old story this morning, but I was thinking about it this morning and I was remembering, and I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? We're not actually ready for story time yet. But so let me give you a heads up. Last Saturday, at this very time, yes, it was, I'm looking at the clock, at this very time, my daughter and I were headed to Carnegie Hall. As many of you will know, my grandson, uh, Reese, was invited to play at Carnegie Hall. Oh, if you, I'm going to be putting some little blurbs up on Instagram later on today. And my daughter's already got them on her Instagram, but I should put them on my Instagram so that you can see how much he shines. Of course, we were not allowed to video or even take photographs at the in the hall or anywhere near inside the building. Um, it would have been nice if the organisers had therefore made videos for us, but we didn't have any of that. So I'm not quite sure how this 1.5 minute little video got to be made, but it's a little 1.5 minutes which I shall be sharing with you on my Instagram. Hopefully later today, if not today, tomorrow. So here we were. It was freezing cold weather in New York City last Saturday morning. And off we went. Now, the performance was at the performance started at 1. But as you all know, you have to get there an hour ahead of time. And then we were always worried too about the traffic and could we get a taxi because it was so cold. And on it went. Ended up getting an Uber or something similar to that. So we headed out. We made sure we all had pancakes for breakfast because we knew we weren't getting any lunch because the performance started at 1. We had to be there for 12, and it wasn't finished until 2:30, 3 o'clock. No time for food in between. So we made sure we had hearty breakfast. So I cooked bacon and what else? And we had pancakes. My daughter cooked the pancakes. I cooked the bacon. And we stuffed ourselves silly with that to make sure we weren't going to get hungry because we knew it was going to be at least 4 or 5 o'clock before we were going to be able to eat anything. So off we went. And my grandson had said to me the night before, Mosey, he said, it doesn't matter if I don't win anything or get a place. He said, I'm just excited to be able to play. And, I said, and of course we do, his mother and I, we do encourage him to always think that way. It's not about whether you win or lose. It's about how well you do and just doing your best. And if your best is, if you do your best, then that's enough. Whether other people think it is or not doesn't matter. If you feel that you've done your best or you're trying your best with any achievement at all, and this is what we've tried to instill into Reese, and of course it's, which is good, it works. So here we are now. I'm skipping ahead. We have to let him go into this netherworld, backstage or whatever it is, and we can't pay attention to him. We can't help him. We can't do anything. And to see this little boy, this little blonde-haired boy, sort of disappear through the doors, and know that pretty soon he's going to be playing on the stage of Carnegie Hall. I mean, wow, but it was a bit nerve-wracking for us. Anyway, we found our seats, we got ourselves a drink, we found ourselves seats. It was very nice because there were several people who came. There were 10 of us all together who came to support Reese, which was really nice. And so we took our places, and we were pretty much one of the first in the hall because we wanted to get the best seats, of course. Anyway, we took our places, and then we waited, and then eventually it began. And there were 37, um, let's say, competitors. There were 37 kids who'd been asked to play from Italy, from Canada, from Germany, from I don't know where else, but from different parts of the world. There were these 37 kids who actually played on the stage that Saturday morning, and they ranged in age also. There were a couple of little 4 or 5 year olds, very cute, played beautiful piano. It's amazing. It's amazing what kids can do, isn't it? And they ranged up to, I think, somewhere in the mid to late teens. So the age groups were. It was, I don't know how they do it, but anyway, they I think they were judged by sort of age groups. That if you were 8 to 10, or if you were 12 to 14, or I'm guessing because I don't really know the process, but anyway, I think that's pretty much what it was. So Reese was the this is like story time, isn't it? I'm telling you a story before story time. Reese he was number 11 out of 37 to go, and as he came out onto the stage, Samantha grabbed my hands. She was so nervous. She'd been nervous the whole morning. She'd been nervous all the day before, and she grabbed hold of my hands and she gripped my hands so tightly it was hard for me to applaud when my grandson came onto the stage. But anyway, so he did beautifully, as you will see from the small snippet that we have of him playing. If you go to my Instagram later on today or in the morning, you'll see his performance. And I had said to him, okay, after that, we'll take you to dinner. Where would you like to go? And his favorite place in New York City of all is sort of on the opposite side of town to where Samantha lives, but it's a beautiful Oriental Chinese restaurant. It's gorgeous. Asian, I should say, Asian restaurant. Beautiful Asian restaurant, and they always do good food. And Reese likes the shumai, which is an open topped dumpling. Anyway, so we went there, and we had our friends who came with us. So we had this sort of a party going on, which Reese loved. And he always likes to go to nice restaurants because he'll sit there and he'll feel very grown up and very important. I don't know if you remember if you were kids, when you went to restaurants and you feel very important if you go to a nice restaurant, and it's sort of a bit special. So that's what we did with Reese. And yeah, oh right, yes, and you want to know where he came in the competition? That's right, of course you do now. Some of you, if you've looked at Samantha's Instagram, you'll know, but most of you probably won't know. Yes, well, anyway, let me tell you this interesting little fact. There were 37 kids, and out of those 37 kids, there were only 3 kids who were not Asian. Amazing. We know that Asian communities and Asian families, we know that they encourage their kids, and we know that they encourage their kids to study and so on and so forth. And it was stunning. And Reese was the only blonde kid in the whole group. Anyway, yes, that's right. Let's get back to it. What did he get? What placement was he? I'm smiling, so it's going to be good, don't you? Yes, he came first in his class. So yes, so we now have this gorgeous little boy. Wait till you see him, and wait till you hear him play. fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Anyway, that is my story of last Saturday. And then, of course, I've been, doing all sorts of things, cooking, baking. On Sunday, we made he loves my cheese crackers. Would you like the recipe? Maybe we'll do a video. Chris, what about us doing a video about and I can make the cheese crackers. You'll see how easy they are and how delicious they are. Anyway, we can do that one of these days. And then here I am, arrived home in sunny Florida, which I'm pleased about, except that today is a day of laundry, a day of unpacking. You know how it goes, right? Anyway, and some more news. Then usually where Chris, where are you? And she's in the next room because she was here with me in Florida for 9 months. Now she did go off on different road trips and so on, but the cat trees stayed and all the Chris stuff stayed. So she's been basically living here for 9 months, and fabulously, she's found a beautiful, beautiful apartment which she loves. Right, Chris? You love it, right?
Absolutely.
And Chris, where are you now? She's not in my bedroom anymore. Where are you, Chris?
Oh, I'm a little bit north of you in Sarasota.
Right. So, staring out at the lake, right? And having
Yes,
beautiful views. And what do you think of this beautiful weather? Beautiful, beautiful weather. There's breezes, it's warm, it's sunny, and it's just absolutely, absolutely lovely. Anyway, yes, so the dynamic is slightly different this morning than it has been for the last several months. But anyway, here we are. So, before
do you want to hear some comments,
yeah,
Rosemary?
yeah, that I was just going to say. So before we go into our story time, Chris, is there anybody there?
Yes, there are. Karen from Toronto saying, "Thank you for sharing about your special day." Rhonda's saying, "How incredibly proud you must be of your beautiful grandson."
Unbelievably proud.
Maggie says, "Yay, Reese, this is story time by itself."
I know, it is a good story, right?
Carolyn says, "Congratulations to Reese. What an accomplishment to perform."
Really, it was. Yes, and
So there
the
you
good
go.
the good thing is what I was remembering the other day when I was whatever it was. I might have been, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. We went on holiday to the Isle of Wight. This is in the British Isles. We went on holiday to the Isle of Wight, and close to where we were staying was this big, beautiful hotel. And every Saturday they would have a sort of like a dance and dinner and entertainment and anyway, and we would go into this very, very posh hotel and sort of just listen to the entertainment and so on. And at one point, they would get some of the kids who were vacationing. They get some of the kids to go and perform, and I can remember. Uh, and how I had the nerve, I don't know, because I was a very, very shy kid. But I can remember being up on that stage at that hotel with a microphone in my hand, probably shaking like a leaf, and singing "Que sera sera," a good old Doris Day song. When I was just a little girl, that one, and I can remember singing that and being applauded. And then the next week, I was requested to sing it again. And anyway, uh, so I was thinking, when we have our kids and we see them perform, I can remember Samantha's first ballet performance. She was chosen for the lead role because she was just a teeny, teeny little fairy-like kid. She was teeny, tiny, skinny, and had great balance. And I can remember watching that, and I can remember watching when she was a teenager at college, and she was playing a part in a dance recital for college. And I can remember when she came in and she was doing her thing. I can remember saying to the stranger sitting next to me, "That's my daughter." And we get so proud, don't we, of our kids' achievements? And I know that my friend Mary Lou, when she's always talking about her grandson Gavin, who plays baseball and he is brilliant. And I said to him, mark my words, he could do really well at baseball when he gets older, because he's got a throw, he's got an arm on him that you wouldn't believe. And we all love when our kids do something special, and we all love when our kids, sort of achieve. But as I was saying earlier to Chris, I think my daughter and I have taught Reese that it's not about the prizes that you win. Of course, we're very proud that he got a first. Of course we are. But it's not about whether you get place. It's not about the achievement. It's doing the best you can and at the same time enjoying what you're doing. And that's what Reese said to me before his performance the night before. It doesn't matter if I don't get anywhere, or if I don't get anything, Mosey, he said, I'm just excited to play at Carnegie Hall. And that in itself was the prize as far as he was concerned. So it's up to us as parents and grandparents, right, to encourage our kids in whatever endeavors they decide that they want to become involved in, and just encourage them and be proud of them and show them how much we value and love them, I think. Right. Any more comments, Chris?
Lorraine says, how exciting. Wonderful. Willie is saying hello, and Cheryl's asking, how is Apache?
Thank you for asking about Apache. He did have a little bits when I was there. He has a stomach issues, so I convinced my daughter to change his food, and so far he's on new food, different food, food that is much more uh, sensitive to puppies that have issues, dietary issues, and so on. And we've changed his food, and he seems to be doing really, really well. So thank you so much for asking that question. Anything else, Chris, before I go into my very old but very beloved story?
No, I think we can go,
All
Rosemary.
right, then. Okay. Are we ready? Are you sitting comfortably? If you're sitting comfortably, then we shall begin. All right. So, once upon a time, and it seems, when I was thinking about this morning, it seems so long ago that this happened. But, time just, it flies by, doesn't it? And in a blink, you've lost 20 years or 30 years, or you're looking back at 40 years, or can't remember how long we're looking back at this story, but it's quite a long time. And if you are interested in the story, want to know more, and want to hear other stories like this or similar to this, of course, you can always find this particular story and others in my first book, The Eagle and the Rose, which last year we celebrated as being 25 years. So that's, so 25 years since the book was published, and longer than that since this story. So if you can imagine, I was much younger then. It was before I came to America, and I've been here a long time. Anyway, I woke up one morning, and my first thought was, as I sort of rolled over and opened one eye to look at the clock to see what time it was, um, my first thought was, "Oh, that's right. I've got a couple of people coming this morning for consults." Okay, so looking at the clock, I realised it. What is that? Why am I awake at 6:30 in the morning? I don't need to be awake until 7:30. But anyway, so I was wide awake, and I rolled over onto my back, and I thought I'd just have 5 more minutes. You know how that is. I'll just have 5 more minutes. And as I rolled onto my back, I realized that there was someone in the room with me. And as I looked, there she was, this glorious, beautiful little fairy doll. I'm going to say this little child was probably about 3 years old, maybe 3 or 4 years old, no more than that. She was the cutest little thing you've ever seen. She really did look like a fairy. She was blonde haired, sort of curly, very, very blonde, almost white blonde hair. Uh, she was wearing the prettiest of dresses, and she smiled at me. And as she smiled at me, she waved. You know how kids do that when they wave with they don't actually wave like that. They wave with their fingers. So I looked at her and I said, "Hello, who are you? And what's your name?" And she said to me, um, "Tell mummy about the tiger." So I said, "Oh, okay. But can you tell me who are you? Do you have a name? What's your name? Tell me who you are." And she smiled at me again and she said, "I want you to tell mummy about the tiger." And she had this little lisp in her voice, often little ones do, right? So I said, "Okay, can you tell me who mummy is? Can you give me mummy's name?" And she repeated, "Tell mummy about the tiger." So okay, so I said, "Well, can you tell me, can you tell me about the tiger? Can you tell me what about the tiger? Can you tell me anything about the tiger?" And she just waved her little fingers at me like that, gave me a big, big smile, and said, "Just tell mummy about the tiger." And she was gone. Was I dreaming? No, I was wide awake. I think I did say to you I was wide awake. I was fully aware that it was now getting on towards 7 o'clock. It only took me a few minutes to tell you that story, but it probably lasted a little longer than that. So I thought, okay, well, I've got these two ladies coming this morning. Maybe this little girl belongs to one of them. Never thought any more about it, and got ready, got dressed, so on and so forth. And eventually, the two ladies were shown into my little study. And when I walked in, there were two ladies. One had very, very blonde hair, and the other one had very dark, straight hair, not very long, straight down her back. And so, I'm looking at the two of them, and we do make assumptions, don't we? Because I'm thinking, oh, maybe the little girl that I saw this morning belongs to the lady with the blonde hair. But anyway, so I sit down, and as soon as I sit down and introduce myself, I see this little girl. There she is. Um, but she's standing next to the dark haired lady, and she's pointing. She's pointing at her, and she looks at me and she says, "That's my mummy. That's my mummy." Okay. All right. So, all right. So, where do we go from there? So, I told the two ladies what we were hoping to do, and then I described this little fairy creature, this beautiful little child, and I described her and her very blonde, very curly, beautiful, silky hair, and uh, and I described that she was standing between the two of them, and then I looked at the lady with the dark hair who was already crying. Well, they were both already crying, and I said to her, "And she's pointed to you, and she tells me that you're mummy." And she just completely broke down, as you would imagine. And so we got over that, and we talked for a little while, and I explained that this little girl had come to me first thing in the morning when I was still in bed. So I knew that she was very eager to talk to mummy, and I knew that she was very eager to help mummy to understand that that she wasn't dead, uh, just not of this world, just not of our world any longer, but that she had survived death, and that was her main focus. So, okay, so we carry on with this, and then at some point, I say, "Now, when your daughter came to talk to me this morning, she asked me to mention something about a tiger." Both, they were good friends, these two. Both women looked at each other, raised their eyebrows, and shook their head. We don't know anything about a tiger. But by this time, you see, I'd already told them enough that they were paying attention to me, and that I must know. I must be able to. I must know something, because how would I know what I'd already told them if I wasn't, I suppose, real, right? So anyway, so they both shake their head. They don't know anything about the tiger, nothing about the tiger. And I said, "Well, your daughter came to me at around 6:30 this morning, I specifically looked at the clock, and it was 6:30 this morning, and she said she really, really wanted you to know that she knows about the tiger. So they shake their heads again, and as I look to the little girl, and I look to the other people in the spirit world who had also, at this point, come along to help out, and I was getting nowhere. And the little girl, and I said to the little girl, darling, can you explain more?" And she just shook her head, and she's shaking her head. "No, just tell mummy about the tiger." It was all she kept repeating. Well, so okay, so trying to figure this out and getting no help from anyone, the two women and myself, we were thinking. Well, so I said to the mother, did she have a toy tiger? Is it what do tigers mean to you? And trying to figure out where what was happening and what was going on, and we couldn't work it out. And the little girl was getting more and more frustrated and just hands on hips, this little thing. You have to tell mummy, I know about the tiger. So, okay. So then finally, Gregor whispers in my ear, finally, this morning, it was this morning. So I looked at the child's mother and I said, "Look, whatever this is about the tiger, it happened this morning, first thing this morning." Um, and she thought for a minute, she looked, and then her eyes went as wide could be. She said, "Well, I was up early this morning, at about 6:30. Remember, I saw this little girl at 6:30 that morning." She said, "I was up at about 6:30. She said, "And I went to get the milk in from the doorstep. And as I opened the door to reach out for the milk, there was this enormous ginger striped cat that just jumped out of nowhere and surprised me, startled me, and almost dropped the milk bottles as it ran right past me." And then her eyes widened even more as she said, it, it just looked like a tiger. And the little girl giggled and laughed and nodded and said, "Tell mummy I know about the tiger. I saw the tiger." So at 6:30 that morning, I was talking to this little girl's daughter. At 6:30 that morning, this woman had gone for the milk and encountered this tiger, albeit a little kitty cat, not so little, by the way. And and the little girl, the 3-year-old, had looked at the cat and just seen a tiger. And she knew that her mummy would figure out about the tiger, what the tiger was, and she knew that her mummy would know that at 6:30 that morning her daughter had been by her side, even though she'd been talking to me perhaps seconds later. "Tell mummy I know about the tiger." It's those kinds of things, it's that kind of evidence. It's hard to explain it. How could she possibly be talking to me about that tiger when her mother was perhaps at the same time or almost a few minutes earlier experiencing the same thing? How can that be? Um, but time and movement in the spirit world is very different than time and movement in our world, in this earth world that we live in. When I think about all of the weird, I have to say, the ridiculous little pieces of evidence that mean nothing to anyone else. The man whose father always kept jelly babies in his pocket, and when his son came to see me for a consultation, and his father came through and put his hands in his pocket, well, he said to me, "Just say jelly babies." I said, "Why am I saying jelly babies?" Just tell my son jelly babies." And it turned out that when I said jelly babies, this poor man almost had a heart attack, just almost fell off the chair. And the father laughed, and his son said, "My dad always carried jelly babies in his pocket when I was a boy, and even when I was an adult, and as soon as I could afford to buy my own, I've always carried jelly babies in my pocket. And he put his hand in his pocket and he pulled out a bag of jelly babies. He said to me, "Here, would you like one?" How 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 can that be? But yet those things like that, the evidence that we give, the information that is given, that is the evidence. It's not the great and wonderful and amazing things that scientists want us to show to prove that we're real. It's the small and mostly insignificant to anyone else. It's the small and insignificant details that other people would dismiss easily. That is the real evidence that you know um, he, it's real. He she wouldn't know if he weren't there telling her. And recently, a young woman whose husband said, when you painted that chair yesterday, couldn't you just put something on the ground to stop the splatters of paint? And sure enough, she'd been painting a chair in her garage, and she'd forgotten to put stuff on the floor, and the paint went all over the garage floor. How how does her husband, who's been gone at least a year, 18 months, how can her husband say, "You could when you painted that chair yesterday, couldn't you put something on the ground to stop the splatters?" How it's the ridiculous, it's the insignificant, it's the that is, I feel, the most startling evidence that those in the spirit world can give us. I'm just thinking how many things, tell him I like the color blue. He painted the front door of his house, and it turned out that the week before, yeah, he'd painted the front door of his house, and yes, the colour was blue. Uh, Silly little things that tell us that our loved ones in the spirit world are there with us. Silly little details that tell us absolutely for certain that we are being watched, that we're being loved, that we're being cared for, we're being watched over, and that our loved ones in the spirit world are still very, very much still a part of our lives and still very, very important to us. I mean, those little bits of evidence are the things that I personally live to hear. I really love it when I'm able to just say that one thing and you hear someone gasp. Well, how do you know? How do you know that? Well, because they're telling me. Your loved ones in the spirit world are telling me. So, a short and sweet but very powerful story of the little girl and the tiger. And if you want to hear more stories like that, please get it. You've probably got it already, right? Uh, get the Eagle and the Rose and go to the chapter that is I think it's the second or third part of the book, where all those stories are nestled in there, and you'll have. And make sure that you either have you're drinking a hot chocolate if you're in the cold, or you're having brandy, or maybe just a vodka tonic works for me. Make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you've got a box of chocolates. Why not? Indulge yourselves. Easter's coming anyway, so make sure when you're reading these stories, because you'll love them, love them, love them, make sure that you're doing something fun and good, and be self indulgent, because you will just love those moments when you read these stories and absolutely know from those little tiny details that mean nothing to anybody else that you're listening to, you're reading pure evidence of a life after death. The end. All right, that's it. Okay, Chris. Comments, questions.
Well,
Excuse me.
Jeff is sending his love to you this morning. And then Dee's saying good morning to you as well. Hugo says, "Happy Saturday, Rosemary." And he's writing it with air sparklers saying you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Um, just if we can go back to Jeff just for a minute. Jeff, we are sending healing for Jim. He doesn't need it really, but we're sending healing prayers. We're sending lots of love. Jeff's really fabulous, wonderful friend and mentor, I think it's fair to say, right, Jeff? Passed yesterday after a fairly long illness, and but Jim, a very special, very wonderful man, very wise guy. I'm sure he's dancing around the campfire even as I'm talking to him about him, rather, Jeff. So we'll just have to think, and perhaps in our mind we could travel to where he's dancing and join him a little later on today. Okay, keep going, Chris.
Hugo had continued saying, I love your book. Karen says, I love this story every time I hear it, especially the way you tell it each time. Annika is saying, lovely story. And then Cheryl says, I had a dream earlier in the week, looking for my sister all over this building and just missing her. Finally saw her and yelled her name, Karenil, and I went to give her a huge long hug. She seemed surprised but pleased to see me, and I wanted to tell her husband she was still alive because I still remember that hug.
Right. Isn't that wonderful? Well, if you've been fortunate enough as I have, and I know that some of you have, and from this lovely story you've just shared with us, Cheryl, you have. When you get that hug, when you get that contact or that connection with someone in the spirit world, you can't deny it's real because because it is. It's just, and it feels, and the memory and the remembrance of it is it's very deep. The experience is very deep and it resonates with your soul, and there's no question whatsoever that what your experience is what you're experiencing is the real deal. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, keep going, Chris.
Cheryl had continued saying, I was captivated by this story. What's so amazing is that the spirit world doesn't get very specific with details. We often have to become detective to figure out their message.
Well, actually, that the story that I just told, darling, actually defies what you just said, because sometimes they are so detailed. I can remember, I think it was only a couple of years ago, I was talking to a lady who was having problems with her house. And talk about detail, it was, because I'm very fortunate in that, and I won't explain it to you. You have to read the books to figure out what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that you have to read more of what I've written. And there are plenty of books for you to do that. But sometimes when I'm, and actually very often when I'm doing a consultation, I describe it like this: I go back and down and through the hole, through time and space. And even though there's part of me still present here, there is that other part of me which literally moves back out of my body and travels through the hole, through the tunnels, down and back in time, back in time and space. And so I can literally even be sitting on my sofa and be somewhere else and experiencing in detail things that are going on. And so when we give messages from those in the spirit world, they are often very detailed because I'm able to sort of go back and not only listen to what they're telling me, but I can see it as well. And I can remember this lady whose house I was looking at. The house had been built on part of the house, not the entire house, but part of the house had been built on some sort of uh, almost like a quarry. And if you went under the foundation, which, how do I do that? I don't know. Don't ask me. I just do it. But you go under the foundation and you can see the specific crack that is happening, that is doing damage to the house. You can see what's going on. You can see what that crack is, how it's being caused, and water dripping down through the crack, which is sort of making the crack wider. The water's pushing the crack wider and wider, and you can actually in incredible detail. You can actually say to someone, if your bill goes here and here and underpins this and in this spot particularly, the detail is amazing, and it's the amount of times I've been able to help people in that way is remarkable. I can remember years ago going to stay with a friend of mine in on the east coast and by the beach, and they had this gorgeous flat, and they had a leak in the roof, and nobody could find out what was going on. So they they called me and said, "Can you come over?" It was a couple of hours drive, but it was worth it because I was able to stay with them anyway, and it was by the sea, and we had a lovely time. And now I didn't need to go over there. I could have done this from my sofa. I could have done this from the house I was in, but what an excuse to go over anyway to such a great place and spend time with them. So I went over there, and I instantly knew what the problem was. And the problem was coming from a piece of the attic, and there was water coming down. And I was able to tell them exactly where it was coming down, exactly where the water was being channeled, and why it was causing this problem. And although the builders were very, very skeptical as I described the place that they needed to be when they went up there, sure enough, there was some sort of a crack in the piping, and they were able to fix it, and the leak stopped. Detail, detail, detail. I love doing that kind of thing. I think it's because, you know, I'm a very curious person. I always tell people I'm very nosy. I like to know what's going on. I like to know what's going on in people's lives. I like to interfere sometimes. I can't help myself. And, so that curiosity that is in me is what drives me to perhaps be a little bit more detailed and try and figure out what's happening. How did somebody actually die? If Because you'd be amazed how many people who call me for a consultation and they say we don't quite know what happened, we weren't there, we're going by second-hand information and so on. And I can, by going back and down and through the hole, and through time and space and all of that, so I can be actually present in those moments prior to somebody passing. I can be present at the moment of them passing. I can see this because going back through time and space enables me to see exactly what the cause was, how it happened, and so on, and detail, 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 detail. And I think it's that detail that makes me as good as perhaps I am. Well, we all know I'm good, not necessarily, you know, better than anybody else or everybody else. But I think if you can't believe, if you're doing this kind of work, my kind of work, if you don't believe that you're good, then you shouldn't be doing it. Don't do it because, unless you can find those details, unless you can be that detailed and that precise and clear on things, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes we're not supposed to know. But, you know, mostly it's the detail, it's the evidence, uh, and the wonder and the amazement is in the detail, which is absolutely what I love. But again, you see, you right when you say the spirit world can be cryptic, because who knew that the tiger was a cat? Nobody told me. If they'd have said to me, "Look, she happened to see this cat jump out at her mother," no, not that simple, is it? No, that's not. But this is a little girl we're dealing with. Little to her mind, this was this was a tiger. So not always quite as clear as we'd like it to be, but the details so precise, and that's what I love about doing this work. Keep going, Chris.
Carolyn says it's a lovely story. I wonder if we ourselves miss little clues and messages from the spirit world.
Oh, Karen, I think all the time. I think we do all the time. I think we miss, we miss the obvious sometimes. I do myself. And also, I tell you what I do, which of course I know better. I should absolutely know better than to do this. But sometimes Gregor will say to me that I'll give you like an example, it's a silly example, but it's like don't don't go right here, go left. And I'm about, and I'm, but my journey is right. So no, don't go right, go left. So, and mostly I listen, but sometimes I think, no, that's the way, and I'm turning right before I'm even thinking what I'm doing, and then I'm regretting doing what I'm doing. Because when Grey Eagle says turn, if he means turn left and I turn right, then I'm going to be, there's a traffic jam up ahead, or there's an accident or something going on, or what have you. And we tend sometimes, even when we hear it, when we hear the instructions clearly, we know we shouldn't do something, but we do it anyway. And of course, it you know, whenever we ignore them, or think we know best, or we're just not paying attention and we just do it anyway because that's what we usually do. Um, yeah, it always works out. We regret it. Let's put it that way. It always works out that we should have listened in the first place, but we're all human, so we don't always do that. Okay, Chris.
Rhonda says, I love the little bits the spirit world gives to us to let us know they are with us. There
I
are so
know.
many wonderful stories on all of your books, Rosemary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking, because we are hopefully, if Chris is unpacked, or, well, I know you're sitting there, Chris, surrounded by boxes right now. But I know also that, if I think we're going to be available on Thursday for our Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because we always have a Thursday morning show. And we haven't the last couple of times because I've been traveling and Chris has been moving, and oh goodness me, we're so busy. But um, I know that I promised you all that I would give you some, little hints and little things to do, and maybe little lessons on how to do this or that. And a couple of weeks or so ago, we did the pendulum, and I talked to you about the pendulum. And then I even showed you how to do the pendulum and what you needed to do, and so on. Now, I'd love to have responses from people back, and how are you going with that? Are you still, or was it a 5 minute wonder when I showed you? But this Thursday is one of those Thursdays, if we do the show, which I think we are going to. This Thursday is one of those Thursdays when I shall be showing you something else. What might it be? Could I talk to you about aura spotting? Could I talk to you about psychometry? Could I talk to you about, I don't know what, who knows what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to give you a little lesson. So if you're interested and you want to learn more about how to develop yourself in a spiritual way by doing little exercises, this Thursday morning at 11 a.m., join me for that. Also, while I'm on a roll with join me for that stuff, next Saturday we will not be doing the story time because we'll be we'll be doing a webinar. Of course, Chris has all the details. Help me out, Chris. Where will we be?
Go to Infinity Foundation is where you will get the tickets. And it's on March 11th. Scrolling, Art of Spiritual Healing from 2:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will put up the link here.
Okay. Now you can go to our website, and we'll tell you how to get tickets. I think
It is
how
on
much
your event page, yes.
how much are the tickets, Chris? Can you remember?
I think it depends if you get the early bird or not, and I'm not quite sure what their early bird
Well, give us a
limits
rough idea.
are.
I don't think
Either 40 or 50, somewhere in there, I think.
yeah. So they're not so expensive, and we'll be talking about healing and why do we need it anyway, first of all, and how do we do it, and how can we benefit from it, and all of that stuff. So we'll be talking. So if any of you are interested in finding out more about healing for yourselves, or you'd like to be a healer yourself, and how do you develop that, we're all born with the gift to heal. It's just that we just need to be able to tap into it and to understand it more. And so the webinar is all about understanding about the energy of healing and understanding how we can develop it within our own selves. And and there'll be opportunities during the webinar for you to ask questions and to talk to me and to we'll give you as much info as we can. Plus, of course, we shall be enjoying ourselves thoroughly. So that's next Saturday, 2:30 in the afternoon. So, okay, Chris, keep going. We've got a few more minutes.
All right. Claudia is writing to you from Rome. She's asking, is my brother-in-law now happy? Is he close to us as a family?
Claudia, it would be so easy for me to say yes, yes, and yes, and because that's probably the truth. But it sounds too glib, really, doesn't it? I mean, it's easy for me to say yes. I do believe that our loved ones in the spirit world, when they pass, I do believe that they come to visit with us. I do believe they surround us with their love. But I also believe that they have their own lives to live because their life is continuing. And they're obviously busy, often exploring. And so now I have Gregor's hand on my shoulder, which means I've got to pay attention to what he's saying to me, which is fine. Uh, so so let me give so I can yeah so let me give you this message to your question, my darling. Definitely he's settling in. Definitely he is happy but also very curious, so he must have been a curious person when he was here on this earth and still curious and learning and so on. So I'm asked to reassure you that he's safe, that he's happy, however missing you all. So so he needs a little time to obviously to settle in, and you need a little time to 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 deal with your grief also. um it's awful, isn't it? We grieve, we don't consider that they grieve our loss, we grieve their loss. But so often, those in the spirit world grieve that we can't see them anymore. They grieve because they want to say things to us, but we don't give them the opportunity. We don't know how to give them the opportunity. When people book consultations with me, sometimes the person who comes through from the spirit world is so excited because they'll say, finally, they gave me the opportunity to talk. Finally, they gave me the opportunity to let them know that I'm here with them. So I think you asked the question. So you gave the opportunity. You gave him the opportunity to say, I'm here with you. I'm still here with you. And I'm okay. Okay, Chris, anything else?
Lorraine says, my sister is coming to visit in April. She had a dream and saw her husband sitting on her couch. The dream was so real, but she lost Joe 8 years ago. She's visiting the same week as his birthday. I thought of him that morning that she saw him. I was looking at rosary beads I bought for him, but unfortunately didn't get a chance to give to him. Then, shortly after that, my daughter had a dream of her uncle, and he was sitting on her couch as well. We were all there surrounding him in her townhouse on the couch. I know he is sending us all a message that he will indeed be with us in April.
Absolutely. Well, I think he'll be with you before then too. I think I think he'll be with your sister a lot. But I think it's nice that you're all having this experience and recognizing it for what it is, because he's obviously been visiting you all. And he's obviously saying, basically, I know you're all getting together. Don't think you're getting together without me. So I'm absolutely certain that he'll be there with you too. Yes. How nice is that? Okay, Chris.
Jeff is sending you 4 hearts and says, my experience with Rosemary and her gift of telling details about our deceased son was the most healing gift.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Jeff. And I think, excuse me, I think, Jeff, I can let people know. I'm sure you won't mind me letting people know that your son, when he did come through to talk to us, and with so many details, I think he sort of he dropped you in it a little bit, didn't he? When he told his mother, your wife, your beautiful wife, who I had dinner with, by the way, recently. So yeah, he dropped you in it when he told his mother that the window that you just put in uh, to the room that you were building for her, which was her art room, the window wasn't central. You were off by at least 2 or 3 inches. And then your son said, "You better put it right before she notices." And poor Jeff, I think, had to take the window out and redo it all over again because his son tittle tattled on him. These are the details that we absolutely love, right, Jeff? We loved it, even though you had to redo the window. We loved the detail. So thank you for that, Chris.
Annika says, about signs from our loved ones. I received a little gift from a nurse, loose tea and a strainer. She told me she debated about what tea to get and decided on lavender chamomile, my darling's favorite. I am sure he helped her decide. It's so
It's
amazing how you, Rosemary, can travel through time.
Isn't that nice that these are these silly little things that happen to us, and if we're paying attention, we recognise that our loved ones in the spirit world definitely had something to do with. Well, you obviously your loved, beautiful loved one had definitely something to do with the lavender chamomile. That's a very strange combination of tea. I've never heard of that before, but hey, it smells good and it's the most relaxing. Chamomile is so nice, so good for you. It's so relaxing and so soothing, and really nice. Anyway, let's get off of that. But you were able to recognise that yes, he did have something to do with the helping the nurse to choose. Little whisper in the ear goes a long way. All right, I think that's it, Chris. Unless there's anything else brewing that we should absolutely address, I think.
No, we can talk offline about the rest of them. So, no, we're good. Claudia
Okay,
says thank you so much, though, as did Jeff.
so you are very welcome. All right. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your support. We love it that you join us. I'm hoping you'll join me on Thursday morning, 11 a.m. If you can't join us on that time, you'll be able to see us on YouTube because it goes straight to YouTube anyway. So you'll always be able to access these things. If you want to know more about us or what we're up to, what we're doing, and so on, go to my website, rosemaryaltea.com, and you'll find all sorts of information there. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we are planning. Um, I'm trying to think, it might be next Friday. I have to check with my friends in England, with K and K in England, but I think we're having a cracking up session next Friday night. But we'll talk to you more about that. Please go to the website and check it all out. Check out and see what it is that we're up to, what we're doing. Again, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me. I love that you love my stories, but I love you for all your support and so on. Thank you to Chris once again for being the best facilitator that we have. And of course, last but by no means least, thank you to Great Eagle for being there with us and for being the most wonderful and fabulous support. I know, finishing where we began, I know that he and my father, my daughter's silly grandpa, and my grandson's great silly grandpa, we always call him silly grandpa, were on the stage with Reese, standing one on either side of him, and he knew that they were there when he did his recital. So we can always trust and rely on our loved ones in the spirit world because they love us so much. We can always rely on their support and their presence in our lives. So again, thank you all for watching. Please have a very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed weekend, everybody. Bye bye.